The experience of RB Bennett offers a timely reminder that economic leadership is tested most severely during systemic crises. Bennett governed during an era of extraordinary collapse, when markets failed, unemployment surged, and existing institutions proved insufficient. While today's Canada is far more resilient, the country still faces large-scale pressures from global shocks, housing affordability, demographic change, and geopolitical instability. The central question is not whether the past repeats itself, but whether the lessons of delayed adaptation remain relevant. Yes, but selectively and with historical nuance. The most relevant lesson from Bennett's experience is not ideological conservatism, but the high cost of clinging too long to economic orthodoxy during a systemic crisis. His legacy shows that extraordinary shocks require timely government intervention, temporary tolerance for deficits, and institutional reform. At the same time, it also shows that acting too late carries lasting economic and political consequences. Bennett governed during the deepest economic collapse in Canadian history. Between 1929 and 1933, national income fell sharply, unemployment reached unprecedented levels, commodity prices collapsed, and private investment evaporated. Provincial and municipal governments were overwhelmed, and Canada lacked modern social safety nets. Although today's economy is structurally stronger, modern Canadians still face systemic stresses that can overwhelm markets and institutions in similar ways if left unaddressed. Bennett's initial response reflected the dominant conservative thinking of the time: balanced budgets, limited federal responsibility, and reliance on market self-correction. As demand collapsed and credit retreated, these policies proved inadequate and deepened hardship. The enduring lesson is that fiscal restraint, when applied rigidly during demand shocks, can become economically destabilizing rather than stabilizing. Waiting for markets alone to recover risks amplifying both social distress and political fragmentation. By the mid-1930s, Bennett openly reversed course. He proposed minimum wages, unemployment insurance, labor protections, financial regulation, and expanded federal authority, drawing inspiration from the U.S. New Deal. Although many initiatives were struck down by courts or only partially implemented, this shift marked a turning point in Canadian economic thinking. Later governments built on these ideas, laying the groundwork for the modern welfare state and macroeconomic stabilization policy. Bennett's experience underscores that deficits, when used strategically, can stabilize demand and prevent deeper long-term damage. It highlights the necessity of strong federal coordination when crises exceed provincial or local capacity. Above all, it demonstrates that speed matters. Late intervention often costs more, economically and politically, than early and well-designed action. Bennett's record does not justify permanent or unlimited state expansion without accountability. It does not support ignoring constitutional or institutional limits, nor does it endorse abandoning markets altogether. His late reforms sought regulation and stabilization, not the replacement of private enterprise, reinforcing a balanced approach rather than ideological extremes. Bennett's legacy challenges the notion that conservatism requires permanent austerity. He remained a conservative while recognizing that extraordinary conditions demanded extraordinary tools. His experience reflects a broader Canadian tradition of pragmatic economic governance, where evidence and circumstances take precedence over rigid ideology when stability and social cohesion are at risk. Canadians should heed Bennett's lessons, particularly the danger of clinging too long to economic orthodoxy during systemic crises. The enduring message is practical rather than partisan. Early, well-designed intervention can protect economic stability, social cohesion, and democratic legitimacy. RB Bennett's legacy is best understood as a cautionary tale about timing and adaptability. His late pivot demonstrated intellectual courage, but the delay imposed lasting economic and political costs. For Canadians today, the lesson is clear: when shocks overwhelm markets, pragmatic and timely government action is not an ideological failure, but responsible economic stewardship. The Canadian Historical Association provides historical context on the Bennett administration and the structural limits of early Depression-era governance. The Canadian Encyclopedia explains the scope and intent of Bennett's New Deal proposals. The Oskard Hall Law Journal article examines why key reforms were struck down and how constitutional law shaped outcomes. Statistics Canada supplies historical unemployment data grounding the economic collapse in empirical evidence. The Springer volume on interwar unemployment situates Canada's experience in an international comparative context. Bennett's 1935 radio addresses offer primary source insight into his late policy shift. The Royal Commission on Price Spreads documents early federal efforts to address market dysfunction. Viewers can pause here to view the full citations and follow links to the source material. For more fact-based content about Canadian politics, democratic health, economic trends, and rhetorical analysis, the Facts for Canadians platforms offer ongoing resources and educational material. These outlets aim to strengthen public understanding, improve media literacy, and support evidence-based democratic engagement.